Hi, good evening and welcome to the Minority Report. My name is Marlon David and I will be your host this evening. And today we have a very interesting show and program lined up for you. We're going to be looking at our special topic this evening, the pre-budget discussion. And we're going to have some very special guests in studio with us to share their insights and their perspectives on what is best for Tobago and what we see in terms of coming forward out of this budget. So we're going to be having some discussions this evening, and we'll be inviting persons to join us on the website. That's the Tobago Updates website, the Facebook page, Tobago Updates, and we want you to share your comments on the page, and you can even feel free to ask questions. We also have our WhatsApp contact number and as well calls that can be made at 284-6597. That's 284-6597. And we encourage you to share the link for this program. It's up there once you get onto it. Let's get as many persons involved in the discussions this evening. We're going to be having some really candid discussions. The program is going to be one that is very free and open for comments and other persons to lend your contributions. So as we get ready to get into the program, let me encourage you to share the live this evening. Stay logged on. We're going to go to a break. Stay locked on, and we'll be right back.
I'm Patricia Nicholson Richards to our top
Tobago
story.
Update Sports. I'm your boy Marcus Daniel. Thank you.
Trinidad and Looms
And remains. When
the public is making.
nobody lives here. Oil and gas exploration continues to affect the livelihood.
Spearside's marine
in
industry.
Tobago fishermen,
When will the
Sion
Roxborough
Francis,
Hospital be fully functional?
Of the 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. window
Still
at the
find
islands.
treasures like the Golden
continue to
Waterfall.
rise in Tobago.
Welcome back this evening, and as I indicated earlier, we're going to be having a special program on tonight. It's going to be our pre-budget special where we have some discussions of what we look forward to and what may be in store in the budget to be read tomorrow. This evening, joining me in studio, I have our repeat guest, always ready and willing to participate, the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris, along with Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Denmark, but also joining us for the first time on the Minority Report, and I mean we should really have some hand claps and so on to have his time. A man of his stature now, his time is very precious, and so we welcome this evening also Senator Lawrence Hislop.
Thank you, Marlon.
Welcome
Thank you,
to the
guys.
show.
Thank you for having me.
Nice, and so this is a very power-packed panel we're going to have this evening. So I want us to kick the discussions of Minority Leader. I'm going to start with you. We always see budget presentations take place, and to the average man on the street, this is normally just a 2-hour process that you go through the rigors of just hearing somebody talk a lot of figures and so on, and many persons don't actually understand what the THA budget means to Tobago in the scope of the larger picture with respect to central government. We want to understand the relevance, in your words, can you put that out for us this evening, of the THA being able to provide a budget, or as many persons call it, a wish list, and what that means to us here in Tobago?
Well, let me say good night to you, Mr. David. Good night to fellow panelists, Minority Councillor, Honorable Senator Lawrence Hislop, and to you, the viewers out there, both Tobago, Trinidad, all of the persons logged on online. and we invite you to participate. We want this to be very open, so you can use the Facebook forum where you can share your views and ask your questions and that kind of thing. And we also have a hotline as well where you can also send information, so I'm sure you would give them that. And to go right into the discussion in terms of the budget, this is indeed a very important exercise for Tobago, for the Tobago House of Assembly as well. In fact, it's enshrined in the Tobago House of Assembly Act, where by the end of the third quarter, the THA is mandated to forward to the cabinet a draft estimate for the upcoming year, next fiscal, which would be basically 2022, starting in October, ending September 2023. And what that draft estimate does is basically, as you said, outline all the things that the THA would want to do under the various divisions. And of course, nothing is cast in stone there, because you now would then have to go through the discussions with the Minister of Finance, and it's only when you get your final allocation through the national budget, then you would know, and you would go through your prioritization and reprioritization to then see how the things you would have asked for fits into what you would have been allocated. So, but this exercise is very, as much as you won't get all the things you ask for, it is very important, because it sort of sets a tone as to what you would get eventually, because you have to now justify why you need this funding, why you need, why you're doing this development and that kind of thing.
Wow, very detailed. I'm going to ask Minority Councillor Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit to weigh in a bit in terms of the preparation of this. We understand now, this is what Minority Leader would have said, why it is. But in terms of the preparation, many persons may think that officials just wake up and say, okay, we need this, we need that, let's put this amount. What in terms of the preparation and the process goes into it? Is it easy, or is it something that is long and drawn out?
Again, good night. Our hosts, Mr. David, the members of the panel, our Minority Leader, as well as our special guest this evening, Senator Lawrence, and of course all of those listening to us and viewing us on Tobago Updates this evening. In terms of the process, as the Minority Leader indicated, the THA is required, and it says it shall in the Act, Section 41, it shall produce its estimates of revenue and expenditure for the forthcoming fiscal, and the Minority Leader would have indicated when the fiscal starts and when the fiscal ends. And the process, if it is to be done right, is a tedious process. And in terms of sharing what would have happened in the past, so basically the estimate is, or the budget is costing the plans, the development plans of, in this instance, of Tobago. So first we will start with what is the overarching development plan for Ireland. And in the past administration context is what it was, the CEDP, or the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan, which of course over time would have expired, and upon the expiration, subsequently the Executive Council would have approved a medium-term planning framework to take us through, I think it was a 4-year period, while we develop another comprehensive development plan for Tobago. So the medium-term planning framework was basically the premise or the tools upon which we look to develop our island on the expiration of the CDP. So there were a number of processes. We will engage stakeholders. So we'll have a number of meetings with varying sectors and organizations to get their views about, what they wanted to see, what are the issues, what are their recommendations, what are their solutions, sustainable solutions to resolve these issues. Outside of that, there was also a process where we engage not only organization, but we engage individuals in normal man on the ground. So this was done via a survey, and a survey was developed where it took into consideration a sample of every community across the island and got their views about what their expectations were, what their issues are, what some of the priorities that they felt needed to be addressed, and how they can be addressed. And once that consultation concluded, what would have happened is that the results from that survey was analyzed and put into a document. So that also informed the process. So we're starting from the plan, where we see the development of Tobago and where we want to get, what's our vision for the development of the island. We speak to stakeholders, use varying methods of engaging our stakeholders, as well as the divisions. And then we, based on all of that, we craft what we consider, we cost what the plan will be. Yes, so we say that this is our 4-year plan. However, for this year, these are our priorities. And based on our priorities, we cost those priorities, development, recurrent expenditure, and we estimate what our revenues may be for the incoming period. So in a nutshell, that is what, and of course we had to craft the budget statement surrounding all those issues, which again was another tedious process.
Minority Leader, I saw you edging to, you wanted to say something, or you wanted us to just go one time to the Senator?
Well, I just wanted Petal just to explain to the viewers that term recurrent as opposed to
yes.
So because that is something you always hear a person saying, well, this is recurrent expenditure,
yes.
And this,
correct.
So recurrent is basically the expenditure used for the day-to-day operation. So like your salaries and wages, your expenditure on employees, yes, your rent, your stationery, your utilities, your sanitation, security. Those are the things that we use for the day-to-day operations to ensure that the assembly functions. Yes.
So everything that makes sure that the island works.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Very good.
Those would be considered recurrent expenditure. On the other hand, the development expenditure is more long-term, and it's more like, how to put it? In the private sector, we will call it like fixed. A more fixed expenditure. So expenditure in terms of construction of buildings. So if you want to construct a health center, yes,
projects,
a community center, those will fall under the development expenditure line item in the various divisions. So I hope I would have...
Very, very clear.
I appreciate
that.
I
have a great understanding now of the process. Senator the Honorable, you sit in one of the highest offices in the land, and so it gives you the opportunity to have eagle's eyes, as it were, on a lot of things as they develop, both in Trinidad and Tobago. You as well would have been privy to several budget presentations coming out of Tobago and the so-called the proverbial wish list. From your seat in the Senate, how do you view, or how do you think the Senate views, or the Parliament would view the presentations every time it comes? Is it something that is taken seriously? Or is it that do you think that there's a preconceived notion that we're going to give them this? Is it that the information that is presented actually informs the process? How do you feel about it?
Well, history, and let me thank you all for the opportunity to be part of your robust discussion. But history has shown that what comes from Tobago is considered seriously. Because there is a minimum of 4.03 that you can get from central government. And more often than not, the THA gets more than the minimum. And on top of it being more than the minimum, you have various ministries who would spend significant money in Tobago. So let's just take, for example, the Cove Power Plant. That was outside of the THA's budgetary allocations. That was a a major investment that was done by central government in Tobago. And we saw the benefit of that when there was the island-wide blackout in Trinidad, that it didn't affect Tobago.
Yeah.
So it's a significant development that was done by a ministry. Significant investment that was made in Tobago's economy. So it's not that Trinidad views what is sent in a flippant manner. It is considered. Hence the reason the Minister of Finance would have discussions with the Finance Secretary. If they considered it partial or just flippant, then they wouldn't even entertain a discussion. They'll just send to you what they feel you should get. And so I think we need to understand how significant Trinidad sees Tobago's involvement in the holistic financial aspect of the country, in the budgetary allocations, because it is greater than a ministry. It's greater than a ministry submitting what it would like for the financial year. This is the Tobago House of Assembly, a body corporate that is saying these are the things that we want to get done in Tobago. So on top of Tobago doing it, the central government as well also facilitates and also spends considerable money from each ministry to get development done on the island.
Two words stood out to me though in the dialogue. One was development and vision in terms of the guiding process for the budget, and I just want some brief comments on this in terms of how does that tie in? How do we come up with the development aspect of it? What is the vision? And how do we now bring that into perspective to sit and decide, well, okay, in this fiscal year, these are the things that we want to be able to achieve at this juncture in the overall vision? Because you would have mentioned the CDP. So let's talk a bit about that before we go forward.
So if I want to jump at that very quickly.
Sure.
You first have to have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, then how do you... All right, let's look at it in your own home. You intend to build a house or to add on to the home that you have. How are you going to get there? What's the plan to put on this extension? What's the plan to build a new home? You have to have a plan. If you have no plan, then how are you going to fund it? How are you going to finance it? What are you seeking funding for? So I'll just get up in the morning and say, I'm going to put on an extension on my house. Right? You go to the bank, and the bank is going to say to you, how you intend to pay back for this? Where's the builder who gave you the estimate? You have no estimate as to what's going to cost. So you just get up, go to the bank. I want $200,000 to put on an extension. But you've walked in no supporting documentation to say this is what it is going to really cost and how long it is going to take.
Senator, we're going in a very, very serious direction here.
No, but that's the reality of the scheme of things. That in order for you to... Trinidad Tobago is not a parlor. So just as the central government has a plan under Patrick Malinto's Vision 2020, how are we going to get there? Under Dr. Rowley, it is now Vision 2030. The pandemic would have stymied certain things. But how do you get to where you want to go? You're leaving WIM to come into Scarborough. How are you getting there? Which route you're taking? You're just going to get up in the morning and say, twinkle your nose like the
I dream of genius.
I dream of genius. And you end up in Scarborough, though you have to have a plan how you get into Scarborough.
And with that plan, the term that popped into my head is roadmap. And this evening I want to encourage you viewers to continue to share the live. Let's get as many people involved in this discussion. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to look at some of the things that the panel thinks that Tobago really needs coming out of this budget. So stay locked on, and we'll be right back.
The Street 919 FM and the Tobago Updates presents the Tobago Updates Morning Show live simulcast on the Street 919 FM. Start your day with all the information you want and need with the simulcast of the Tobago Updates Morning Show live Mondays to Fridays from 7 a.m. on the Street 919 FM, the official station that defends the nation.
Welcome back, and this discussion this evening is heated both on and off set. We have quite a lot taking place at the same time this evening in the studio. I want to encourage those of you who are listening and logged on. You can share your comments, or you can call the number 284-6597. That's 284-6597. You can share your comments, you can ask your questions, you can add to the discussion that we're having this evening. And before we move on, I want to include the Minority Council. You were making a point of set that is really critical before we progress.
Yes, because just to jump from what Senator Lawrence would have indicated, one of the guidelines that both the central government and the Tobago House of Assembly used to inform the estimates is called the call circular.
The call circular?
Call, yes, it's a call circular. And the call circular is issued, so in the case of the Tobago House of Assembly, the Division of Finance or the Budgets Department in the Division of Finance will issue a call circular to all the divisions. And the call circular basically gives instructions as to how you would go about presenting your estimates. And one of the things included in the call circular is that it should be in keeping with the strategic plan of the division, the comprehensive development plan of the island, and in terms of the national context, the Vision 2030, those plans. So because our estimates will inform in the future, be a part of the estimates of the country, we are also required to submit the estimates to the Ministry of Finance. And in their call circular as well, they have particular guidelines by which the Tobago House of Assembly must follow in submitting their estimates. So it's like a ripple effect. So what the central government requires based on the national plan, based on Vision 2030, all of what we are doing must fit into, because at the end of the day, we want to get from where we are to whatever the vision of the policymaker in office is at the time. And the estimates is basically part of the journey to get there. So it's building out, it's costing out what the vision is. So the plan is the platform for which the estimates.
So there must be a plan.
There ought to be.
There ought to be a plan.
That's what I'm getting here. For the system to work, there ought to be a plan.
And you know, I'm very happy that we are having this kind of discussion, because you know, a lot of us would see on the day, yes, you have the budget statement, you hear very little of the estimates itself, and we don't really have a thorough appreciation for the kind of work and for the process that informs the outcome on the day of the budget. So, you know, this is one of the things we want to continue to do as a minority, make sure that we have these kind of discussions that persons are able to understand governance on the island, because it's only through enlightenment, only through education that we can really get to move the island as one people, because it's only then everybody will understand the process. Because I was talking to someone and they are of the opinion that, you know, we just come together, we just throw ideas out. So I may get up and I may believe, well, I think we should get this over there, and then we should put this over here, and that is how you get the budget. But it's really a process that is informed by a plan.
Very well researched. We have a caller on the line this evening. Caller, you're live.
Pleasant good night to the panel.
Hello?
Hi, good night. Hello?
I'm not sure if we lost that one.
Hello, good night.
Hi, caller, you're live?
Yes, good night. Good night to the panel. Good night, each and everyone there. Right, this is a call from Trinidad. This is Mayaro PNM here. Right? So
welcome to the Minority Report.
California said, no, who is this California? And I said, Mayaro PNM. Right. You know what I would like to see in the budget, right? With the continued development that the PNM would have left, you know, there, and you know, not like what happened with, and you know, when you change the guards, that you'll actually leave projects at a stalemate. Like, but let's take for example what happened in Trinidad, you know, the Brian Lara Cricket Academy, the Diego Martin, North Recreation and stuff like that. You know, continue developments and don't leave Tobago stagnant. Right, and not just another thing, not just to do for your people, but do for all of Tobago, so that Tobago and Trinidad can work hand in hand together moving forward, because we are one country, just divided by the ocean. Have a pleasant night, all.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Welcome, thank you. And you know, one of the things I observed in Mr. London's first presentation, he made the point, and perhaps that is why he ended up being so successful, that his approach would not be one where they simply discard or discontinue things, because he saw it as a continuous governance. And so he said, he said he would not just go out and say that the previous administration at the time didn't do good things, and if they had good things, he will continue to do the good things. And I think that is a very important approach and a very important point to take when you're approaching governance. And as Mr. Mayaro said there, in terms of even treating how you treat with the personnel, the people, you know, is it that you just throw everybody because you believe that
red flag waiver?
So it is important, you know, that we see this island and see ourselves as one people, working towards a common goal of making Tobago prosperous, making Tobago developed, making Tobago hospitable, and a place that all of us can live and enjoy, and the island itself thrives, you know.
Correct, yes.
So to the panel, we are now in probably the endemic stage of something that has affected the global community, and we are on the verge of Tobago now presenting its budget, its wish list, as it were, to the central government for the way forward, what we think should happen. Taking into consideration what we've been through over the last 2.5 years, I want to get some perspective from you guys. What do you think Tobago should ask for? It's a very, very critical question, what we should ask for, which may be different from what we may ask for. So take that into consideration. We looking at post-COVID recovery and so forth.
What we should ask for?
Yes.
What are we asking for it for?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to the
because I'm asking, the reason I'm asking the question you're asking, is it based on monetary value, or what do we plan to do?
And that is why I want us to explode and to break it out.
Yeah, because we have to know what we
see as the plan.
Right, we have to know what we really desire before we know how much we're asking for.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going back to the same analogy of the home. If I don't know what I want to do in terms of an extension or remodeling at home, what am I asking for?
Yes.
I have to know what I intend to do before I know what and you see, we run the risk of pie in the sky stuff if we don't have a plan. And we have to be careful that our budget is not a budget of popularity. Because truth be told, you look around the world, any governments will not be popular in maybe a year, because if you're really doing governance properly, there are hard decisions that you have to take, because we've grown so accustomed in this society of instant gratification, and nobody, we're having a challenge looking down the road. We're having a challenge considering what's going to happen 5, 6, 10 years. That's the challenge we're having. Everybody wants something no. I'm not considering that if I get what I want what's the implications for that?
Yeah.
And that's why the plan is important. And really considering what is the overarching plan. And you know, as Senator Hislop spoke there, and he spoke about, you know, that whole thing about making tough decisions, because governance is really about management and leadership. And in terms of management, you have to make choices, and some of them are indeed tough choices, and it cannot be about popularity or just pandering to everyone's need, because at the end of the day, you would have a need, Petal would have a need, Lawrence would have a need, and we have to now be able to prioritize and understand what is the Tobago, what is the overall things that Tobago needs to make the island itself be able to sustain all its people. You know, so it cannot be simply that as you ask the question, what should the budget be? It should not just be a budget pandering simply, you know, to appease partisan support or anything like that, but it should really be underpinned by a vision for Tobago and its people.
Yeah, and just to add as well, in terms of the vision, prior to 2 years ago, as you said, the COVID pandemic was not with us. So our vision going forward, and in the national context, we would have had this post-COVID recovery task force. And as an island, I know we would have started something in the past administration, but it's something that we need to look at, because the pandemic would have brought across some realities that we didn't recognize existed, and it would have emphasized or exaggerated some that would have existed. So we need to plan in that context, because we're still in the pandemic, although we are in the endemic stage. But what is going to happen now while we're still in the pandemic, as well as post-pandemic? And again, it starts with the vision. What do we want to see? Where do we want to go? What is the ideal place that we want this island in terms of development, and then looking at the steps to get to where we want to be, being our goals, our objective, or strategies, and prioritizing. Because although we want what is best for Tobago, we also have limited resources, financial resources. So what will be our priorities? And we need to prioritize it year by year. So what may be our priority this year, because of the situation and circumstances, we may have a different priority the following year. So it also has to do with determining what your priorities are based on your current circumstances.
But Marlon, just to jump in quickly, what is key is that there has to be serious stimulation of the economy. Because truth be told, if we continue in what we've experienced for the last 6 to 7 months, there'll be no Tobago economy. There has to be stimulation. There has to be. Listen. I live and I work in a particular industry that we have seen the raw materials that we sell just stagnated on our hands. There is a level of. The truth is there is a level of fear in the economy. There is a level of, and that's the worst thing that could happen to an economy. There is uncertainty in an economy will shut down an economy. Because if I don't know where I'm getting my next paycheck or whether I will survive this round of contracts, I'm not going to spend.
I'm saving. I'm in the saving mode.
I'm going to save. I'm going to conserve. And if I hoard, then it affects everybody else. It affects the entire. Because if I hoard, then the mini-mart, the supermarket, the hardware, everybody is affected. So there has to be a level of stimulation in the economy in this budget, and I'm hoping that's what we will see.
With that, Senator, we have a Facebook comment that we just want to bring up on screen. What does the panel think about these increases in salaries at various divisions before seeking additional funds from the central government? With all these increases, are they still going to add the ex gratia payments for teaching staff to the budget?
You know, I really didn't want to get too much into
that.
I really want, because, but the question sort of falls into what I was going to say, because we also need to really treat with the needs of the vulnerable in the society. So whatever and wherever there are opportunities to enhance those that are, you know, most in need, those are most vulnerable at this time, we also have to, I would really like to see some focus placed in the social sector and those social interventions. In fact, our last motion would have spoken directly to those challenges faced by persons who domestic violence, child abuse, and that kind of thing. And then we are saying the families, we need to focus on the families going forward, because if we are really to build communities and build villages, village councils, and empower communities, then we have to have strong families. So we need to put some focus there, and that means that we have to, each one have to help one and bring up everybody together. So rather than focus on who gets raised and who don't get raised, I just think that there has to be a clear policy and plan that treats with the vulnerable in our society.
My comment on the question that was asked, to me it's all about sustainability, and once it's sustainable, I don't see an issue if the country can afford, or if the island can afford, based on its current financial circumstances. Sustainability for me is key.
Yeah, true. Now, we were having a discussion, Senator Hislop, before we actually began the program, and oftentimes when we hear persons speak, you get the impressions that people think that what is happening here in Tobago, and by extension Trinidad and Tobago, is just happening in Trinidad and Tobago. However, there was an article that was released, I think earlier today or yesterday, which made reference to the UK and what was taking place there with respect to inflation and so on. And what this brought to light is the fact that what persons are complaining here about that the government is doing is being done in governments all over the world. And you had some interesting points and views on it.
Well, I can be very mischievous, very facetious when I need to be. And clearly Boris Johnson is a PNM. Clearly the UK is run
by the
Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is Keith Rowley's twin.
Yes.
because when I read the article from the BBC, the same things that we are, and I said to Maryland, but wait, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Is England not trying to be? Because they imagine, let me just read one paragraph. It says the National Education Union has criticized the government proposals for a 3% pay increase. But Dominic Raab told the BBC Today program, we've got to stop making the problem worse by fueling pay demands that will only see inflation. Now hold on. I have absolutely no problem with people getting a pay increase. Because I understand that if prices are going up,
yes,
then my dollar is shrinking. And that is a real phenomenon, and none of us are insulated from that on this panel. Not because we are PNM, it means that when we go to the grocery, that the price that you pay less. You pay the same price at the grocery. Whether you are a senator or a laborer, it's the same grocery bill. It's same grocery price. And so we really have to bear in mind that we are not insulated. Trinidad and Tobago, as we know, are price takers. When you have one of the largest growers of wheat in our war, and I said to somebody yesterday, Ukraine cannot even plant for next harvest. So if we think the situation with wheat is bad, no. When Ukraine is unable to plant wheat to be reaped next year, then there's no wheat coming from Ukraine next year. So then, and it's a reality we face. And and persons have to, it's like, and I'm going back to your own home. If you have scarcity of something, what do? You complain and you have to find. We have to become creative.
I was now going to say it, and that is why we also have to look not just at the challenges, but the opportunities as well. Because as we now see the opportunity for alternative types of flour and that kind of thing, and it means, but what I would like to see is that those opportunities really are afforded to those persons who are already in the vineyard. So you have your agro-processors who are already doing, some, I know one young lady right in Mount Mary there that does that type of agro-processing and is really empowering those persons.
And giving stimulation comes in. Create the avenue for these people who have been doing it to do it at a larger scale. And so you reduce your import bill. We have to become
creative. You grow the economy at the same time, because remember, this is now revenue as well. So you're expanding the economy while at the same time stimulating it as well, because you're talking about jobs, you're talking about other people being able to, the person, the distributor. You're talking about the person who have to pack it into the grocery store and all of that. So it is really an opportunity.
And the spin-off of that we get healthy.
And we get healthy.
Because it's gluten-free.
And many times persons think that, well, okay, this statement or this article is in isolation. So I just want to read it as well. Workers and unions are pushing for pay rises to cope with higher prices. But the government has warned against employers handing out big increases in salaries over fears of a 1970s style inflationary spiral. So there's precedence to this. This is not something that because of COVID the government is taking.
But the thing is not only COVID, because as the senator would have indicated, there are a number of external factors that are affecting
the war in Ukraine.
Go ahead.
Right.
So we look at our neighbors in Barbados a couple of years ago.
3,000.
What?
In one go.
Sent home.
And just recently I saw an article where the IMF is now telling them again, you need to, with the rising prices, the inflation, they need to do some more adjustments and that kind of thing. But I also wanted to say, at the same time, we have to appreciate the workers call for more. Because we know the value of the purchasing power would have decreased, and the worker would always want as But then again, this is why we're saying governments have to also make, because the government could only give as much as they can afford, and that is sustainable as well. Because the reverse is you might very well get the back pay,
but you have nothing going forward.
But then when the government can't afford to sustain the salaries, they too will have IMF knocking at the door, and they would have to make the kind of cuts that would, you know. So
I like to be home, you know. I like to bring it right home. You are four-family home, mother, father working. One person gets laid off. That's a reduction in revenue.
Now you're talking to my home right now.
one person gets laid off. That's a reduction in revenue.
Yeah.
So if you're accustomed giving the child $100 or $200 allowance when the month comes, because you have a reduction, you have to start to look at, okay, how do I do this? Do I continue to give you the $200, or do I give you $100? And we look at another way to supplement the other $100. So I'll give you that $100, or I'll tell you here what to do. You'll wash the car for me every other week, and I'll give you an additional. So we have to become creative, because the truth of the real fact is the country has reduced earnings, and that's across the board. And we have to find ways and avenues to not only continue to survive now, but and as I said before, down the road, we have to be mindful about down the road. It's not about now. And I empathize with the work. I understand what the workers are dealing with. It's not easy to see your purchasing power diminish. Yeah, it's not easy.
And again, it goes back to sustainability. Resources, financial resources are finite. Based on the resources available and our priorities, are the decisions being made sustainable? Because at the end of the day, as the Senator said, you don't want to make a decision now that will have adverse impact on even the worker later on, a year or two from now. Because I think the decision and the factors that would affect the decision has to be based on all that is happening.
Proper planning, proper research.
Correct.
Everything.
And of course you want to protect the worker. I don't think any government or anyone, any policy maker will want to see that after a decision is made now that workers will be sent home. They can't afford to pay the wage bill that currently exists, or the wage bill that it has increased
That it has increased to. Correct.
It's unsustainable.
Yeah. How long can it be sustainable?
So I want to ask the panel one final question before we begin winding down this evening. And again, the discussions have been very, very informative. And I think a lot of awareness has been created based on what we've shared this evening. The issues that we see here in Tobago, and again, I want each of you to share your own perspective on it. Do we see that simply a budget would be the answer to address some of the issues that we see? Again, coming out of the last 2.5 years or so. Is it that we think our budget is the fix for it?
No, of course not. Well, that's the simplest answer.
Because you see, it's all about, and as it really goes back to your plan, and you have to have a short-term, medium-term, and long-term plan. And you know, one of the things that I really hope we can address in Tobago as well, coming out of that 2-year pandemic where, you know, our tourism sector was down and that kind of thing. You have the issue, well, unemployment, but youth unemployment as well is one of those areas I feel strongly about. And as I would really hope that, you know, we will be putting out an alternative plan as to how we believe it can be addressed, but I would want to see what would be said tomorrow when it comes to that issue of unemployment, especially amongst the youth.
And on that note, it's not, to me, it's not just about It's not just about unemployment amongst the youth, because we create these make-work programs so that persons could have money in their pocket. But does it move that person from that lower level to a higher level? Because I remember during the elections I had a mantra, let's focus on profits instead of salaries. So when I talk about stimulating the economy, it's about creating avenues for persons to get into, get to a level that's not just a 250 a day or a 350 a day.
Or
just sustainable levels. Yeah.
In terms of answering the question, if the budget will solve, first we need to identify what are the issues. And what is the root cause for the issue? A former chief secretary would have said, if you diagnose incorrectly, you will prognose incorrectly. So, what are the issues? And what are the root causes of those issues? And again, it comes back to sustainable solutions. Because at the end of the day, we want to arrive at a solution that is sustainable, that will either significantly reduce or eliminate over time. And what are those strategies that will allow for that to happen once we understand and diagnose what is the root cause of the issues that we are currently facing? So the budget in isolation is not able to do it. So all the factors must be considered in arriving at treating with the challenges.
Minority Leader.
Well, you know, I tend to agree with both Lawrence and Petal, you know, in terms of really understanding what are the challenges, what are the issues, and also having a plan that would be able to, one, in the first instance, help those that really need help in the now, but at the same time be able to take them to a place of desperation to elevation, a place of, you know, destituteness to prosperity. And so, you know, it's really creating that kind of filter that can move you along the system rather than just bring you to one place and have you stagnated, fixated, but doesn't really do anything for you long term.
Correct.
You know, so that is one of the areas that we would really want to focus on.
I think that what you shared there kind of brought to my mind the issue of giving a man a fish, as opposed to teaching him how to fish. And we could clearly, based on what was shared this evening, I think that the perception of the panel is clearly the fact that the budget needs to point in the direction of teaching a man how to fish and not just serving his immediate need. I want to give each person an opportunity this evening to share your final comments. I see the Senator in deep thought. This discussion has really caused you to dig deep this evening, and I mean, a lot of realities have been shared here this evening, so I really want to give you all the opportunity to share your final thoughts to our listeners.
Yeah, well, we look forward to something tomorrow. Tomorrow is budget day in Tobago. And we have grown accustomed to itching ears, to hear nice things. And I could almost guarantee you that there will be nice things in the budget.
You can almost guarantee?
Yeah, there'll be nice things in the budget, and there'll be things that will be, you see, the last administration couldn't do this, so we're doing it. So that's expected. And that's politics. But there has to be a trajectory upward. We have to know how we get in there. So it's all well and good to have the niceties and the pay increases and all of those kind of things, and the mega projects. But how we get in there. The councillor says finite resources, and we go in to the same treasury that all the other ministries are going to. And that pie has to be divided up amongst everybody. So we also have to be realistic that even though we create this euphoria for what we want, we also have to bear in mind that if everybody is going to the same pie, the slice that you want may not be the slice that you get. All I'm hoping is that when, after tomorrow, that we have a clear direction on where this island is going to go within this financial year. That's all I'm hoping for.
Thank you very much, Senator. The place gets still. Yeah. With that delivery.
When the senator speaks, everybody listens. Well, for me, you know, I quite expect, as Senator Hislop said, you will get a lot of, you know, fanciful speeches, plans, and a lot of, you know, programs that would make people, it would impress people. It's like when we saw that presentation in Dubai, where some persons were wowed by, you know, this City of Roxborough with hotels floating in the ocean, and since then we have heard nothing of it, absolutely nothing, because it's really, you know,
it would be nice to have hotels floating in the ocean.
Of course, of course. But the thing is about it, as you say, is the economics of it all. How are we going to fund it? How are we going to implement it? How are we going to make it realistic? And that is where we will be really looking to see what are the socio-economic kind of philosophy or plan that will be driving this kind of those pieces of projects and stuff that we would hear, because I'm sure as night follow day, they will come with a lot of grandiose projects and that kind of thing, you know, mega projects. But what is the underarching philosophy? What is the plan? What are those pillars that these projects and programs will be built on? And is it sustainable? Is it realistic? Can we achieve it within the time that you have? Measurable.
Smart projects.
Yeah, you know. And so we really will be, I would be looking at the details more than the theatrics of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that is where you would really get the answers.
Well said.
Yes.
Minority Councillor.
Like my colleagues, I look forward to seeing what the vision is tomorrow. Because I know you would have heard the Chief Secretary and the Executive Council speak to Tobago being the greatest little island. But how do we get to be in this greatest little island?
How is important.
And I am hoping to see what the plan is coming out of the estimates. It will also be interesting to see the comments and the posture of those on the other side, now that they're in governance, you know, based on some of the comments that would have made in the past in terms of the budget and the presentation and that kind of thing. So it will be interesting tomorrow to see what the presentation is like, what the plan is, how the plan is costed, what will be the value of the overall estimates in terms of development versus recurrent, what the revenues, the projected revenues will look like. So I, as the minority leader, I am also seeking the details.
Bated breath.
Yes, and of course we want what is best for Tobago and what is in the best interest of our island. Because if the executive does well, it means that all of Tobago, and we all benefit because we are part of the island. True. And yes, we are a part of a political party, but so we are Tobago first.
I always say that, because you see, at the end of the day, we genuinely want this administration to do well, because we want the island to do well. We are all coming out. We will have felt the effects of the pandemic, and we are all a family at the end of the day. We have family. Every decision affects a family. True. It affects our Tobagonian. So we really see this island and this island's interests as our priority. That's why we have the Minority on the Move, making you our priority, because it's you, the people, that we serve at the end of the day. And if you are not being served well, it falls on all of us as well. So we really look forward to see what would come tomorrow, and even the days following, because you know,
exactly. You have the debate soon after.
Governance is a continuum, so it doesn't stop on December 6th when the PNM lost the election, but it continues.
I think that reality is
yes,
shining
it's a
brightly
reality
in the eyes of
and,
some.
And for us on the minorities, also a reality for us, because we are seeing things from a different lens. And of course, it causes us to be more responsible in our utterances or decision making, because we hope to be on that side very soon.
I love that.
We also have the prediction and the minority report this evening.
You're so correct.
And when we are sitting on the other side, we don't want that when we are sitting there that our words come back to haunt us, because you may find that very thing happening now.
Definitely.
So what we want on this side, this is what we want on the opposite side, is what we want is what is good for Tobago.
And this is why, as we conclude, the whole issue of firing Tobagonians have been such a sore point for me. You know, and I've said this numerous times to minority council. I said, this kind of approach has to stop at some point, and if it doesn't stop with them, we're going to ensure that when we are back on the side of governance, that we treat Tobagonians as Tobagonians. We allow systems, performance appraisals and performance management systems to work, and we build out productivity, not on personality or preference, but on person's performance. You know, and so that issue is one that has left a real sour taste in, because I believe that a number of the persons that would have been released are Tobagonians of high repute. You're having persons calling you by the day, unsure, afraid, looking for new opportunities, because they just feel that they are next.
And on that note, Minority Leader, I know you have an initiative as well coming up next week. I just want you, before we close, to inform. You closed on the correct topic.
Definitely. So I want to invite all Tobagonians, whoever you may be, with any challenge where it comes to industrial relations. It may just be if you've been affected by those very dismissals, non-renewal of contracts, if you felt like you've been victimized, if you felt that you've been targeted, if you felt that you are currently being targeted, or you're vulnerable of losing your job, we have a forum with legal experts. We're going to have other supporting personnel. We're going to have pastors. We're going to have therapeutic counselors there as well, because it's not simply about losing the job, but there's a psychosocial effect that goes even beyond, you know, the whole experience of it. So we think some person might need that theological intervention where you need just that prayer, you know, to keep you going. You may want to talk to someone who is a professional, a counselor, that kind of thing. So we're going to provide that kind of support for persons who would have recently lost a job and that kind of thing. We are inviting you. It's going to be at TAMS Building, 3rd floor, TAMS Building, on the 28th, which happens to be Port Mall.
Right.
That's at the Port Mall, and it starts at 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are asking you to share the information, and don't just come by yourself, but if you know you have a colleague or so, also bring them along.
Excellent.
So who is going to be at this forum? Is there going to be legal experts? Are there going to be union representatives?
Yes.
And
so as I mentioned, so we're going to have a legal firm with over 3 senior lawyers and about 3 junior practitioners. We're going to have representatives from the major trade unions. So we are expecting CW, BIGU, and the national NUGFW. You know, we expect also, as I said, we'll have some pastors there, and we'll have at least counselors as well.
Excellent.
So this is a very holistic forum. Very, very well. And that initiative sounds to be something that would definitely meet the needs of those. And I've asked the producer to just share the flyer for the initiative.
And as we wrap up finally, it's just to make people aware that we are not just about complaining, but we are here to provide solutions as well. We are here to provide support as much as we can. The Office of Minority, we don't really have any real funding, so we can't directly, you know, treat with some of the social issues. But we are continuing to try to see how best we can find innovative ways to support families as well, because we know there's a great need out there for families seeking support at this time as well.
Well, viewers, you've been watching the Minority Report, and this was our special program, the pre-budget special, and we had discussions, and I want to thank the panelists this evening, the Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvon Morris, Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit, and the first timer to the program, and I hope definitely not last, Senator the Honorable Lawrence Hislop. You have an open. Yeah, the program can be going on, and you can just take a seat at the table. That is how much we value your contribution.
He doesn't really fit into the concept of minority, because he's a majority.
So then he will bring a lot of
Thank you for the invitation, man. Thank you.
So folks, you've been viewing the Minority Report pre-budget special. A lot of interesting discussions, and we want to echo the sentiments of all at the panel. Tomorrow we expect for the Chief Secretary to indicate to us what is the plan. Folks, we want you to have a wonderful night, and we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday as we continue the Minority Report. And we know by that time the minority would be heavy into the debate process, and we also look forward to that.
It would be a great show.
Exactly. Thank you very much, and you have a wonderful night. Goodbye.